I would like to introduce our panel. So Annette Lawler, who will be moderating this, is, well, she's been in, she's the founder of Lion People Global. She worked in sales and marketing, but then discovered that her true passion was people, connections, and finding the synergies between that. And after many years in the United States, she went back to Ireland, where she founded, where she started both a family, 3 kids now, and a company, the company Lion People Global, which provides growth services through its talent and MA solutions, and focusing especially on language services, but also extending to data and AI. And we heard about kind of that move from LSP to data provider, digital marketing and software industries. Then moving to Lauren Cullen, Global Director of HR Business Partners at Intercom. So she actually started her career at HR in HR at Google. Then she was with Twitter for several years, actually in the early days, and grew the Dublin office there from very few people. Oh, she was the 4th employee to growing it to 250, over 250 people. And now over the last several years, she's been helping Intercom grow to over 600 people across 5 offices. So working in that HR space for quite some time. Then we have Dominique Pauls, Chief Communication Officer at TSD, Technik Sprachendienst. And she started her professional career in economics, but she realized that her heart belongs in our industry. And so she merged her passions and has been working on optimizing localization strategies, bringing stakeholders together, and solving the puzzle, many puzzles that our industry challenges us with as a team. And she says she's nerdy in many ways. She loves languages, cultures, and contexts, and she has a real passion for pop culture and rock music. Finally, we have, well, not finally, I'll get back to Michael. Delphine, who's working remote management, change management as a leadership development facilitator and consultant. And she has been, she is a longtime media localization veteran. So she's working in Paris, France. Before that, she was based in Montreal, Canada. She was also VP subtitling global operations at Deluxe. So she's as well very passionate about people development, collective dynamics, management innovation. And then finally, we have Michael Lawler, who's a naturopathic physician and acupuncturist, and he lectures in preventative medicine at the College of Naturopathic Medicine in Dublin. And he also runs Monkstown Natural Health, a busy clinic in Dublin. He's also co-founder of We Thrive Health. So lots of different spaces. And a long-term student of the School of Philosophy in Dublin, where he's running guided meditation workshops. And we will get some of that meditation later on. So a great panel for talking about well-being in the new hybrid workplace. And with that, I think we can go to the first slide.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Søren, for that lovely introduction. Certainly your pronunciations will be a lot better than with my Irish brogue. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And actually, I'll just take this quick opportunity to thank the panel for all of the work and contributions that they've given over the last couple of weeks and for your time today. I think this subject is one that's very close to my heart, and I think close to the hearts of everybody on the panel today. And given that we're entering a second year of this global pandemic, I think probably close to the hearts and minds of hopefully a lot of our audience as well. So look, we know now that that things will never be the same. Employers are facing a new challenge. The challenge that they're facing today is really one of employee isolation. So here we are on a conference that's normally held in person, and here we are on video. And so video conference has really been the portal to connect employees culturally, collaboratively, and otherwise for the last year and a half. For most employers, this is a brand new challenge. We're talking about, improving ways for workforce engagement and for well-being. And we know now that remote work and a digital well-being culture is here to stay. So in December last year, PwC conducted a remote work survey. This survey suggested that overall, remote working has been a success. In fact, 83% of employers said that this new shift for remote work had been positive experience for their companies. On the employee side, 1 in 5 said that they didn't want to return to how things were pre-pandemic. So we know that it's here to stay, and we know that this new world will be something different. So we have today on our panel representation from LSP, we have representation from client side, we have representation from consulting, and we have representation from the global wellness sector. And what we're going to try and cover really are 4 kind of key topics. The first of those really is the battle between connection and isolation. So we're going to look at this from an employer's standpoint, through the employer's lens, and also through the employee lens, so looking at the challenges of both. We'll talk about the current support that's being offered by employers today. And then we'll look at ways that we can self-support. So figuring out what are some of the signs of burnout within ourselves and how can we self-support. And then finally, hopefully talking about what we've learned from all of this and successful practices for moving forward for a full or partial return to the office. So I think it's probably appropriate right now to share this lovely slide. And this is a drawing by Dominique's daughter, and I think she's 5 years old, right, Dominique? Yeah, 5 years old. And this is her view of her mommy sitting at her desk, working every day. And so I think this is quite typical of how we've all been living over the last year and a half. So with that, I think it's probably appropriate if we stick up our poll and figure out what the rest of us have been doing. And is this a typical view? If we could have the poll, please, Bella. So looking at this poll, if you can just answer true or false, nice top, but PJs on the bottom. You still mainly work at your kitchen counter or sofa. No more Netflix shows left to binge. So if we could vote here, that would be great. Okay, so while that's running, maybe we'll move on to this first area that we're going to cover. So we've talked about this a little bit, and this is, the battle between connection and isolation. So looking first at the view of this through the employer's eyes, and maybe Dominique, you'd like to start. What are some of the challenges that you needed to overcome at TSD going fully remote as quickly as we did?
Yeah, so, we have the polls.
We have the poll.
We want to do that first, yeah?
Yeah, Søren?
Before you get into the discussion, so we do have a majority of pajama wearers. And I'd be interested if that's also the people that are in Europe, where it's a lot later in the day, or mostly the people in the United States or Canada, the Americas. But we didn't ask it granularly. Still, nearly a quarter working from the kitchen counter and or sofa. I'm guilty of that. I actually set up a nice workspace today just for the conference. And it seems there's still some shows to watch on Netflix, but we also have a solid quarter of people who think like they're done, they're through with it. So we need new content as well, which might be a nice task for the industry as well, right? Maybe subtitling a few shows. So with that, back to you, Annette, and the panel.
Thank you. Thank you. So Dominique, I'll let you take it from there, maybe sharing some of those challenges.
Sure. So I guess like for most of us, also for us at TSD, like the practical side of changing to a remote environment wasn't that hard. So we had a set of organizational structure in place, which was already great help. well, I'm always focusing on behavioral economics. That's like one of the other nerdy things I'm about, like the other things I'm nerdy about. So this really helped. And we had about 2/3 of our staff who were 100% working from home. So like switching to a remote environment wasn't that difficult because we already had everything in place. But now we're facing those long-term challenges that, I mean, we've been discussing so lengthy about. I think that one of the first things that comes to my mind is the onboarding process, obviously, which is really hard to do fully remote. So there we try to find hybrid solutions to be able to do this where it was possible. But then the social isolation and the lack of communication is still something that is like there up front. Like we did a poll with our team, like an internal survey, and like social isolation was rated highest, the highest challenge in remote work for the whole team overall. So, well, in essence, I mean, it was obvious that it'll come to this because most people who work with us, they have chosen this actively, you know, they have chosen to work in a company like ours because they explicitly wanted to work in a team. So those are the things that we're trying to address at the moment. Then we are seeing things that develop from the social isolation. So we're seeing team members who work a lot more than they did before, that have trouble, you know, keeping their screen time in check. So we really need to address those points proactively. And I mean, trying to get back to what Søren said before, we're a Germany-based company, so we already have, like, the core team is already aware of, you know, work-life balance and all those things. But even in this environment, we see all these things dribbling down and, you know, see the stress. For me, one of the key learnings really, which I didn't realize at the beginning, was that it's actually a good idea to reduce your amount of video calls in a week. So I do have lots of introverts in my team, and even those who are like introvert extroverts at the same level like myself, you know, it can drain you immensely if you always feel that you're on stage, as we are now, all of us today. But it does drain you and take away your energy from what you actually want to do, and also discussion flows less freely because you're not used to looking at your own, you know, reflection all the time when you're in a normal meeting. So this was really one of my key takeaways from the last 12 months, at least. Let's see if I find another one. To reduce video calls and to go back to, you know, just telephone calls or just, you know, audio most of the time.
Yeah, it's true. It can get, there is a real thing called Zoom fatigue, I've discovered. For sure. And it's finding individualized approach for people because everybody's different. I think that's key too. Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dominique. Lauren, I know when we talked before, Intercom obviously being a tech company, I think you were all doing Hangouts, you know, when we hadn't even heard of Zoom years ago. So it's somewhat normal for you, but I guess the whole company then moving from the lovely fancy offices to fully remote, what has been some of the challenges that you didn't anticipate that you've seen?
Yeah, it was a pretty big shock for us. So some similarities to Dominique and some very different inputs. You know, we are a global company. Hangouts are the norm. I've spent most of my career on them. Flexible working is pretty normal for us. But we really, really value in-person collaboration. We spend a lot of time traveling to offices. We do a lot of in-person meetings. We do a lot of offsites. Like you said, Annette, we have workspaces that are built around collaboration. So we were never really open to the idea of 100% remote working. We had some exceptions to it, but we really valued in-person collaboration. And still today, that is our preference, but we know the world has changed. We're never going to go back to all in office. So we have had to adjust. I kind of look at this in two lenses, Annette. So the first one is, from a company perspective, what are the challenges that we face? And we have had actually lots of positives that we never thought we'd realize. You know, some of our company events, like virtual all hands, and some of our ways of collaborating virtually have actually worked really well. But we've had really big challenges actually around specific types of work. Similar to Dominique, onboarding of new employees has been one of the biggest challenges. We're going to have our biggest year of growth yet. this year. What we really realized very early on is you forget all of the benefits of the in-office onboarding. So, you know, the conversations you have at the desk when you're like, hey, what's this doc mean? What does this, who's this person? All of those things that we started to realize people onboarding were feeling isolated. And that is something that I would say we still haven't fixed, but we are iterating and kind of improving more regularly. And then the second big thing at a company level that we haven't yet solved but are making progress on is around collaboration, that type of work. So prior, we would do an offsite, we go to a lovely location for 6 or 7 hours of a day. Doing that over Zoom is just impossible. We can't keep people's attention span. As you said, you get the Zoom fatigue. So from a company level, we still are experiencing challenges, but actually really starting to adjust the way we work. I think the big call out, and you touched off it a little bit, Annette, is the individual impact that it's had. And that for me is really the biggest challenge with the pandemic. And everybody experiences this differently. So there's no one size fits all. So, you know, for me, as an example, I have an 18-month-old baby. I have a really busy house. Both me and my husband work full time. I would say our lives are chaotic during this time, and we're trying to balance. I have a girl in my team who's extremely extroverted, lives on her own in an apartment. Her family are hours away, and she's feeling really isolated. So the solution for both of us is very different. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges is, you know, how do you tackle that? But there is commonalities that we've experienced similar to what Dominique is saying, which is around the kind of always on mentality. And that's probably the one that I think all of us, me included, you know, we are on our watches, our phones, our laptops, our desks are in our home, our workspace is our home. And our commute has now turned into work versus commuting or other things. So I think that's a real challenge that we, you know, are experiencing still in everyday lives, and we are putting some measurements in place to improve that.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Yeah, it's very true. Everybody's different and everybody's living situation is different. So we have to take all of those things into consideration, which is no mean feat. Michael, just talking about maybe some of the issues that you see with We Thrive in the wellbeing programs that you provide, and also just people coming into the clinic. Are there any changes in the type of things that people are, you know, that people are looking for help with, as opposed to what they were before pre-COVID?
Yeah, well, I guess it's the usual suspects, to be honest. It's stress and anxiety. I mean, stress and anxiety, they've always been there. We've always dealt with them in one way or another in our working lives, but it seems to me it's a lot more focused now. It's a lot more intensified, I think, during the past year. I guess there's the fear and the worry about the virus, and then the concern maybe for older members of our families, and then maybe older members of the community that we're involved in. And then, as Lauren said, there's the pressure for parents at home now, working parents at home, trying to run a home, trying to keep a place clean, trying to tend to children. And then you've got homeschooling thrown in on top of that as well, at the same time as you're trying to do your job. So we have, there's a lot of disruption in the day. And then we have Zoom calls like this. You know, the Zoom calls where you're trying to hide your children in the closet so they don't poke their head onto the screen. So there's a lot of stresses there. And this is really leading to this emotional upheaval. I think, as Lauren said earlier, this always on mentality, this always connected culture that's so dominant now, excuse me, that we're working from home, has a lot to blame for sure. The call of the internet, right, it was always there, but it's really loud now. And the call of the workplace, it's really loud because we're living with it. We're right there. It's in our face. We're constantly checking in. We're constantly going down rabbit holes. You check in for 5 minutes and suddenly you're disappeared for an hour. You don't know where the past hour has gone. I think this in turn has an effect on the emotional state as well. We have a circadian clock in our bodies, a biological clock, a rhythm that's established during the day. And it starts off when light rises in the morning and when light falls in the evening. And if we are still working and on blue light and on screens past dusk, we're setting ourselves up for problems, particularly with sleep. I mean, if we're not sleeping well, your day is not going to be productive, number one. If you're on screens and you're checking your laptop and your phone late into the night, digestion suffers. We get blood sugar issues, cardiovascular system, your heart begins to get affected from all of this. So, and then there's the common buzzword right now, burnout. This really relates to the fatigue levels in their body. And the adrenal glands are two little glands that sit on top of your kidneys, are the hats for your kidneys. Now these fire out adrenaline and cortisone into your blood to get you ready for the day. But they were supposed to be fired out when there was a stressful situation. Let's say when a tiger was poking his head in your cave a couple of thousand years ago, and you were getting your trainers on and you were trying to run out the cave. Well, this is happening to us 12 hours a day now. So we're living in this fight or flight mode in the body when we really should be living in this rest and digest mode. And this is all being brought on by exactly what we're going through right now, all of those fears, all those worries, and then this always on mentality at work. And then I think somebody had said earlier, we have the loneliness issue now as well, as a result of social isolation. I don't think enough has been made of this, to be honest. We are social creatures. We need human connection. We need it to thrive. We need it to live well and happily. So it's no surprise that the emotions such as stress and anxiety are really heightened at this time, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. It's true, and you know, it's really, those lines are very blurred between work and home. If you have it's all in one space, then it's really important to try and keep those lines clean. And Delphine, if I could just talk to you a little bit about this as well, because you know, managers, of course, are employees too, but they have an added, and I think that, you know, a lot of the research that I've been reading over the last while is that, you know, there's a very high percentage of this, to use the buzzword, Michael, burnout among managers in particular, because of course they're still individuals, they still have kids that they're homeschooling, they still have all the regular issues that we have, but also the challenge of figuring out how to keep other people motivated, how to manage teams that are in different locations with completely different backgrounds and settings and everything else, and still get the work done and for the quality to be good. In your work with executive teams, what have you found to be the case here?
Yes, I mean, I think as we just said, the feeling of isolation, just like Michael was saying, has becoming predominant and is definitely something, an impact that we've seen 1 year into working from home. Because if we, as we heard from Dominique and Lauren, localization companies were definitely one step ahead, with many of them being global and collaborating with many freelancers. So the setting up, the putting working from home in place maybe was not so difficult, but today this is when it's beginning to hurt. And one of the main factors probably for that sense of isolation or loneliness is the fact that management teams were not ready for this, and they don't always feel as supported as they would need by their organization on that topic. The situation is still novel for some of them to be fully remote, and they lack training on how to manage remotely. And while some managers did receive formal training on how to do so, many are still waiting 1 year later on training or simply on best practices. And they're really left wondering some very, very simple things like, how do we remain connected? How do I best share the workload? How do I pick up the weak signals? You know, Michael mentioned burnout. How do I not favor some team members and forget others? Or at the end of the day, simply, how can we be a team? And I think a second point is that managers and leaders always had a lot of pressure. And today, on top of their regular pressure, they're now worried. They're more worried about the health of their team members who are themselves in a situation of isolation. We heard it, but it's harder to really know how they're doing. And we talked about having a camera, you know, on or off, but at the end of the day, reading those weak signals can be challenging when you don't have face-to-face interactions. And if managers realize that someone on their team is not doing so well, they don't always know what to do with it and how to handle it. And I think Lauren mentioned it. Probably a third thing that I wanted to mention is the fact that managers have their days that are even more extended than before, and overall their workload has increased. I think on the one hand, because they're loyal to their employers, they put many hours in, and because they want to be present for their teams, because that's what we tell them, that tell them that they need to do, they're making themselves super available, and no one really sees it, but it adds up. And they end up being in a constant crisis mode. I think Michael just described it, and which is exhausting. They've always been, or they've often expected to solve everything. And today they find themselves in a similar place to that of their collaborators, except they haven't received training, they work even more than before, they have tremendous pressure, and they don't have many people to turn to for help and support. And that contributes to a sense of isolation. And as a result, some remote managers do end up in psychological distress, and more of them in plain burnout. This is true.
Yeah, it's very true. I mean, it's important that we look at supports, and I think, you know, with that in mind, it's probably a good time to look at those supports right now. Maybe we look at them first from the employer standpoint, and then maybe look at ways, as I said earlier on, where we can figure out those signs ourselves as managers and employees, and figure out how we can self-support. So looking first at, you know, what are the employers doing? Maybe I can turn back again to you, Dominique, here on this one, and talk about your experience and what are you guys doing within TSD today to help support?
Thanks for this question, because this is really something we started, you know, like from day one, more or less, to say, okay, this is going to be a situation that's going to be ongoing for, well, at first we thought maybe a couple of months. Now we are facing a longer period, but nonetheless, the first thing we really focused on straight from the beginning was to think about remote social interaction, because we knew, okay, we cannot meet each other anymore the way we did before. So we really need to find things that we can do together, even if we cannot be in the same room together. So we did sports activities together where we shared, you know, we tracked how much kilometers we were running or cycling, and you know, made little challenges out of this, little teams where we could battle each other. We did remote escape rooms, obviously quiz nights, because we have a lot of English speaking colleagues and they just love quiz nights. I know it's something about this island thing, I'm not sure, but they love quiz nights. We have to do quiz nights. We did a bake-off for Christmas, where, like, and since we couldn't taste all those cookies and cakes, we had, like, part of the challenge was taking pictures of those and describing how it, you know, how it was, and, you know, have a little content created there. So that was really fun. Vouchers for Christmas dinners, and even, you know, if you just schedule, you know, every second week an hour with your team to just chat and, you know, actively put work stuff out of the picture. So those are the easy things, you know, that anybody can do that, you know, like even the smallest company, if you're just 4 people, you can do that. So this is what we did, straight ahead, and it was really easy and people really enjoyed it, and, you know, at least it was something, you know. And a lot of those things even came from the team, you know, it wasn't something that, you know, the people who were especially in charge of doing internal activities, you know, organizing them, but some of these things really came from the teams, and are developing. So we're developing new ideas there going forward at the moment. Then on the communication side, this is, I think, one of the challenges I find hardest, because a lot of communication usually in an office, you know, just happens. So now you have to schedule meetings for this communication to happen. And this makes the communication sometimes a bit bulky and complicated, and you really have to think about the timing as well. So this is another thing that we did. We just, like, now my calendar is full of jours fixes I have to attend, or I am attending, to find solutions to that. But really we want to do more. We want to go ahead. We want to go a step ahead, because we think that since working remotely came so easy to us, and in our survey we did, like 46% said that they even work better remotely than from the office, or for how they worked before. So that's really an asset, and we want to, you know, build on that asset. And it's somehow in the DNA of the localization industry, I think, to be good at that, and to, you know, like, knowing how to work as digital nomads, like even a decade before the term even existed. So yeah, going forward, the things that we will be, wrapping our head around is, okay, how can we organize hybrid workspaces where both worlds, function well, and where we can have best of both worlds? How can we improve collaborative structures? Like keeping in the back of our head, a desk is a place where you're supposed to do, quiet work, and a soccer table and an open plan office is not going to do the trick. So yeah, we want to be a bit disruptive here. That's our goal for 2021.
Interesting. And so, and all of these activities, they sound great. The employees were engaged in those, and were they allowed to engage in those during standard work hours, or was it expected that it would be after, or it's built into the day?
Well, it depends on what it is. I mean, it depends on how much time it takes up. But yeah, I mean, like, for example, the sports challenge, everybody was free to, use their break, and even have a longer break to, go running more than they would have been able to if they would have worked from the office. So yeah, we work with flexible work hours here as well. But yeah, like, I don't know, this 1 hour I do every 2 weeks with my team to just chat about stuff. We mostly chat about Marvel at the moment. But yeah, so this is in our normal work hours.
Okay.
Because
Brilliant.
otherwise we would have, chatted in the office.
Yeah, the same
work hours. So it doesn't really make any difference. It's part of working together. Having these private talks.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And what about you, Lauren? What are some of the things that Intercom is doing?
Yeah, there's tons of things that I mentioned already around like how we work, how we collaborate, onboarding, that are kind of ongoing pieces of work. But I think some of the interesting things to share, and to Dominique's point, this doesn't all have to be about money, but when we've done a lot of our research, it's the individual person that's really struggling. So we've made some big kind of initiatives at a company level. One being we're taking one company day a month off. And this is kind of like a mental health day for us. And really the purpose of this is to try and get everyone to be off together, because as you know, if you're off and everyone else is still in work, you're still getting emails, it's still somewhat hard to disconnect. So this is a moment where everybody can just go, take a breath, focus on themselves, whatever they need to do. So that's been really successful, but slightly on the larger scale. We've also done a lot of smaller scale things that are really focused on, just the general setup for people. So we do provide a small stipend to employees to kind of help them pay for a home office. But there's other things additional that are low cost that we do. So for example, we have things like ergonomic assessments. We have employees actually volunteering to do meditation, yoga, Pilates, all online. You can do it on Zoom or Hangouts, on video, no video. So they've been really kind of helpful resources just to get people, time, space, to breathe and kind of digest and balance, and also have the right setup. One thing that I've really found beneficial, even as a leader and a manager, is just we've a list of resources. Kind of what Dominique was saying, I am not the most fun person in the world, so I sometimes need a bit of help with activities with my team. We too have done all the quizzes and the beer making and cocktail making, but there's some tips and resources in there, really small basic things. Like last week, my team, we met for an hour. We're all based all over the world. We gave everyone a $25 lunch voucher, and we all just came and had lunch together and just, chatted about, I don't know, things you would chat about in the office as you're sitting at the desk. Other things that, if I could give anyone a tip from a company perspective that we've encouraged, is walking one-to-ones. So now I encourage it with my team, where we where meetings where you don't need to be on the laptop, that it might be just more conversational, to let's walk together, turn off the video, throw in your headphones, throw on your jacket and get out and walk. And I think creating some habits like that, and having them from a top down from the company, or as managers creating them within your team, is really, really important. And then the last piece is just around that community feel. We're quite, I would say, like the average age is probably 25 to 30 at Intercom. We had a ton of social events. We had like a coffee group that went to all different coffee shops together. We had brewing beer, we had interparents, we had, you know, inter-women groups. So we have all these communities, and we've had to shift all of them online. But I think, you know, having creative ways and having managers and leaders encourage and give space and time to do it has been really important. And I think that's the key. You know, you can do 1,000,001 things, but if everyone's so busy and they actually can't stop and focus, you really have to encourage people to kind of, hey, you are responsible for your own person in your space, but as a company we need to make sure we give people that space as well. So there's tons of different things, but if I could, you know, leave people with one thing, it's like you as an individual or a manager, even if you're not a manager, you can take some of these things and apply them. You know, it doesn't have to be expensive to be effective, is the key there.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lauren. I love that. Walking one-on-ones. That's definitely a great idea. I really like that. I hadn't heard that.
Try to get your 10,000 steps in.
Getting your steps in, your challenge in, yeah, while
Exactly.
getting your one-to-one. Excellent. Brilliant. Okay, so maybe we could have the second poll, Gala, while I move to the next slide, because I'm conscious of our time here as well. So if you could share that, that would be great. Okay, so the first question here, are you struggling to stay motivated? I've got a choice of answers there. Do you have difficulty setting work-life boundaries? And is it a struggle to gain a sense of accomplishment? So just while people are voting on that, maybe we'll quickly move on to this idea of self-support. So we're talking about employees themselves, managers themselves, maybe ways of identifying what are some of the signs that maybe, you know, I am experiencing some sort of burnout, and what are the ways that I can self-support? So Michael, I think this one needs to go to you. What can people do now, today, to combat stress and promote self-care?
Well, look, there's a couple of easy solutions right now that we can adopt without having to buy anything or pay for anything. We think to do with health and well-being, we have to acquire more stuff, to buy more stuff. Well, there's some simple stuff we can do, okay? It's been proven time and again that simply stopping for a minute or two, or pausing as we like to call it, a few times a day, has an actual profound positive impact on the stress levels that you experience during your day. Now, what do I mean by stopping and pausing? I mean, as we go from activity to activity. So let's say we get up in the morning, we get ourselves ready for work, we get the kids out to school, and immediately we're into the next thing that we have to do. And there's no breaks in between these activities. So I guess what we try to do, we're trying to tell people to stop, take a beat, even if it's 10 seconds. When you've done something, when you've prepared your breakfast, take that 10 seconds to stop, just be aware of your surroundings, and then eat. Once the eating is finished, move on, and then just before you go to work, stop again. Okay, some clients that come in, I tell them to, when they get into their car to drive, instead of going straight in with this constant motion that we have, stop, feel the steering wheel in your hands. Just be connected just for a couple of minutes. And the more of this that we do in our day, the less time we're going to spend up here, because this is where all the trouble is. The trouble is not in the world, the trouble is here. You know, it's when people in situations don't react or come out the way we want them to come out. This is the biggest cause of our stress and our anxiety. Now, having said that, there's 3 times we can live in. We can live in the past, we can live in the future, or we can live in the present moment. And I know that this, all over social media right now, we're hearing about past, present, and future, live in the now. It's come kind of a buzzword now. It's come a sticker on the wall that we don't really get into. So let's not make it a sticker on the wall. You know, if we're going to live in the past, yeah, we reminisce about a good or a bad past event, okay? And if it's good, well, then we'll experience some form of diluted happiness, let's say. And if it's a bad experience, well, then it'll make us miserable. And, you know, depending on how many times we want to repeat going to the past and experiencing that misery, that's what's going to happen. And then there's the future, and the future doesn't exist, okay? It hasn't happened. But what that we get expectation then, and we get anxiety leading to maybe we're fearing about either a good event or a bad event that might happen in the future. And again, like I say, it's all up here. So the more we can do to get into this present moment, the better. And that's what those pauses will do, those short breaks. You know, I mean, we talk about mindfulness and meditation. We don't need to do the half-an-hour meditation. We don't need to do the 10-minute mindfulness, not yet. If we want to take small baby steps, these pauses are a great way to go. I mean, at dinner time in my house, what I try to do is I have this little Indian, I think a Tibetan singing bowl, that once the dinner is prepared, we hit the bowl, and the thought is to just close your eyes, stay with the sound of that bowl until it dissipates. And that usually lasts about 2 minutes. The kids get about 2 minutes out of it, but it has a profound impact on how the meal goes. It's less stressed because you're not moving from one stressful, busy situation to sit down and eat. And before you know it, the meal is gone and you're cleaning up. So it's really important that we have these breaks during the day. And then there's sleep. We have to make sure that we're sleeping. We have to make sure that we get to a good level of deep sleep, because it's going to affect your whole day, right? So a quick thing is to, at nighttime, turn the brightness down on your laptop. If you need to work late, make sure it's right down. Make sure that the brightness is right down on your iPhone, okay? Because what happens is, at dusk, when light falls, that's the time when this little gland in your head, the pineal gland, starts to release melatonin, which is a hormone, into your system, which calms you down, which gets you ready for sleep. But the problem is, if you're on a screen till 9, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, the brain still thinks it's the daytime. So that melatonin is not released into your body. So you're not sleepy. So you hit the pillow, an hour is gone before you know where you are. You haven't even slept. You don't even feel sleepy. This is the reason. Now, in a study that I read recently, the iPhone 10, I think it is, dimmed down to, at full brightness, shuts off melatonin production by 75%. Now that's huge. But conversely, if it's dimmed down to about 2%, it only affects melatonin by 1%. Now, this is a huge thing. Now, a lot of people are going on about blue light glasses and all this kind of stuff to block out the blue and the white spectrums in light. Yeah, they're fantastic, but the easy thing is just turn down the screens, turn down the brightness. Then there's movement. Movement is key. Movement is key for any kind of emotional upheaval. Movement has been outperforming antidepressant medication for treating depression every single time. All the evidence is out there. Movement outperforms antidepressant medication. That's a huge statement, but it's a fact. It's out there. Clinical trials back this up. So movement, and we don't mean doing a 10K every single day. It's not like that. The ancient Chinese cultures would say, exercise like the hinge of a door, a little and often, okay? So if it's something as easy as running up the stairs and running down the stairs, I know we're not in our offices anymore, but when we do get back there, maybe we can take the stairs instead of the lift, okay? Small stuff like that. Get out for walks, like the girl said earlier on there about moving, you know, get out for a 10-minute walk. Just get out early in the morning. Let the sunlight hit your retina, and that resets your circadian clock, which I spoke about before, and then your systems will function properly. Take breaks every 10 minutes. Get up from the screen, maybe walk around, because we get tight up here because of the constant hunching over that we have at the laptop and the poor posture. So if we just push back, make sure you have a good posture. Get up, move around, move your neck, move your head around, get the blood flowing in and around the joints and the shoulder and the neck. That's another really important part of trying to dispel this stress. And then finally, there's the food. I mean, snacking and binging are too easy when your fridge is within arm's reach, because as we said earlier, most of us have our desk at the kitchen counter, okay? So food and mood connections are well established, okay? Choose the fruit over the sugar snack. That's simple, okay? Because if you have this sugar rush, this sugar craving that you get post 2 o'clock, when you get that midday slump, it's easy to go for the sugary snack. But if you just make the decision to go for the apple or the banana, and the first bite will immediately get rid of those cravings. It's a fact, okay? You should try it. And then, I guess, with processed foods, anything that has more than 10 ingredients in it, bin it. Don't go near it, okay? Go for locally produced food, home-cooked food. Stay away from the processed food. Like I say, there's a lot of stuff in there that's going to mess with the systems in your body, and you don't want that when it comes to your daily lives, okay? And then the elephant in the room is the coffee, guys. Okay, coffee it's great if you take one a day, but you know, now we're very close to the coffee machine in the house, and we're up to some of my patients are having 10-20 cups of coffee per day, which is insane. Because as I said before, cortisol and adrenaline are released in the body when caffeine gets into the bloodstream. The adrenals pump this out into the system, and then you're ready to go. That's what gives you the jizz in the morning that you need. But the problem is, if you're doing it all the way up to 10 to 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, It's going to have an impact on your sleep because coffee stays in your blood for 12 hours after it's been consumed, a quarter of it. So if you have a coffee at 12 o'clock, it's the same as having a quarter of a Americano just before you go to bed at 12 o'clock. So it's the same thing. It stays in the system that long. And my remedy for this is tea. Tea is fantastic. Tea, if they could actually make a pill that does what tea does in your body, it would be the biggest seller, okay? Tea contains antioxidants, which are going to help you live longer. It'll stop your body rusting. It stops free radicals in your body from going out of control, okay? But also what's important about tea is it really stimulates that feel-good hormone that you have in your brain, dopamine, okay? Which is the feel-good hormone that we have. Tea promotes this. So swap the coffee for the tea. It establishes better brain connections, and you know what? You'll live longer. In studies, tea drinkers live longer than people that don't drink tea or those that drink coffee, okay? And then just the final word on food. If you're looking for an eating philosophy or let's say a diet, I don't like that word diet, okay? But opt for the Mediterranean diet. Proven time and again to be one of the best. The Mediterranean diet means plenty of nuts, okay? At least a couple of good portions of oily fish per week. Plenty of olive oil, but don't cook with olive oil, it goes rancid, okay? So, drizzled over a salad or something like that. So the Mediterranean diet, all the information on the internet is out there about what you need to do to follow that diet. So all of those, we talk about the mind, the body, the heart, and the gut. So the mind means the mental capacity, okay? The body is our exercise and how we move. The heart relates to our emotions, and then the gut relates to our food, how we eat and what we eat and why we eat. And we really have to have all those 4 pillars strong. It's like the legs of a table, let's say. If all of those 4 pillars are strong, that table is going to be really, really solid. And it's like that with your health and well-being. So you can't be deficient in any one area. Make sure you look after your mind, make sure you look after your body, make sure you take care of your emotions, and then make sure you choose the right foods and understand why you're eating and how you're eating. So that'll be a good start. I mean, I could go on forever here, but there's short and small things that we can do right away that don't cost anything.
Thank you. I can hear the passion there, although I'm still not sure I can swap out my coffee. I think that's just a step too far just yet. Maybe take it down. So thanks very much for everybody that voted on the poll. It looks like the biggest issues that we have here is creating boundaries. So having difficulties setting boundaries and sometimes struggling to stay motivated. So thank you for that. Okay, so I'm conscious that we're getting tight on time, and I did want to go to you, Delphine, as well, just to quickly chat, maybe just a couple of quick points about managers and self-care, if there's anything in particular. I know you've touched on the need for some training and stuff like that, but if you could quickly jump in and we'll talk about successful practices after that.
Yes, I mean, I think managers are expected to motivate and promote the well-being of their teams, but in order to do that, they need to start by taking care of themselves. And I would have, with more time, I would have gone over, some of the best practices that they are already encouraging their teams to adopt, but to do them for themselves. And one of them is definitely creating work-life boundaries. Planning the day, marking the start of the day, of the work day, by your ritual, even if it is going out to grab a coffee. Michael, not so happy. And if you do have to work, still from your kitchen counter, that's not ideal. Try and create a true workspace. And yes, we're not less productive in our PJs, but the routine of getting ready to work and dressing up can help create some boundaries. So these are just some quick examples, as we don't have much time. But I think Michael mentioned it, taking breaks, but breaks, all sorts of breaks, not just the morning breaks, lunchtime, weekends, vacation. They need to be allowed to disconnect, and they need to allow themselves to do so. And I think it's Lauren who mentioned she's no longer commuting. Now, ideally, trying to reallocate that time to something else, not working more, but sports, calling friends, cooking, whatever. And I think maybe one thing that we managers do not do enough is talk about these topics with their own bosses. They need to be able to talk about workload, about morale, about stress, about their breaks. They can't just be the cheerleaders for their teams. They need to be able to share their issues and feel that they're supported. And maybe one great way, one last thing is, one great way to get the support is peer support. This can be a great help. They work on maintaining relationships between their team members, managers, and leaders, but it is also super helpful amongst managers to have regular meetings to discuss issues and solution. And committing to these regular meetings and being open about challenges and issues can be very, very powerful. At the end of the day, I think managers should view self-care as part of their job description. This is, you know,
absolutely,
we don't do it enough.
We don't do it enough. Absolutely, absolutely. And okay, so I'm conscious of making sure we have enough time. So this is something that's really important that we do need to try and cover before we go on to the Q&A, and leaving enough time for Michael to guide us through a meditation so we float into the next session. Just quickly, you know, this is how do we move forward? So beginning here, I think the most important word that I've learned that keeps coming back over and over and over again after all of this is vulnerability. So I think, you know, the pandemic, if it's shown us one thing, it's shown us the need for vulnerability. And I would ask, you know, if we could just do a quick round robin maybe of some of the things that we're all doing for ourselves or for our team to move forward and to take positive things from what we've learned over the last few years. I'll quickly share mine first. With vulnerability, and that would be I get up very early in the morning. I'm very good at the movement, and as my sign says in the back here, and into the ocean I go to lose my mind and find my soul. So I jump into the Irish Sea, which is not for the faint-hearted, and I come back and have a hot shower and get dressed for work. So that I'm meticulous about. I'm really, really good. But after I make dinner at 6 o'clock and the kids are in bed, I'm guilty of sneaking back out here to the office and scheduling Zoom calls and talking to you know, to the West Coast, even though I know I shouldn't. I don't do it all the time, but I'm trying, and in small steps. So with vulnerability, and I'm trying to encourage my team to do the same. So if I could maybe jump quickly to you, Dominique, first, and if you could share with vulnerability.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to do is to actually admit when I'm struggling and when I'm challenged, and to actually talk about this to my team and to show them where my problems lie, where I think that we should be working on, and so on and so forth, instead of, you know, having the solution up at hand and trying to solve all the problems of the world, because this is like a little bit my problem. I always want to solve all the problems. So yeah, my take on this was actually to address this and to talk to people, and by this to lead, because I think that if we just tell people, oh, change, don't drink the coffee, drink the tea, they will not do it. I have to start drinking the tea and show them, oh, I'm drinking the tea, I'm feeling so much better now. And hopefully by this, they will, you know, see, okay, this is maybe an option that could also work for me, and they try it. So yeah, okay. So that's my take on vulnerability. Share it.
Share it. Lauren.
Yeah, similar. For me, you know, I've definitely had times where I've really struggled during this lockdown, just with the volume and chaos. So I think talking about it to my team and encouraging us all to take time off or go and spend time on our own. So in particular, I think one thing I take away is I now do a quick loop every day, rain, hail or snow. I normally used to do it and try and call some on the way, like a family member or a double job. So now what I do every day is do a quick 15-minute walk. I don't call anyone. I don't talk about COVID. I don't talk about the pandemic. I listen to a really brain-numbing podcast, and I've shared that with my team and encouraged people. So I think, you know, similar to Dominique, like as leaders or even as a peer, it doesn't matter. Like try and help others, but do it for you first, because you are the one that you need to look after first and foremost.
Delphine.
I think maybe be kind to yourself, because yes, you know, I would love to say that I apply what Michael said and that I pay attention to my 4 pillars all the time. on a daily basis, but I realized that I never managed to handle all 4 at the same time. So I will have phases where I exercise nearly every day and I feel fabulous because it gives me a lot of energy. Then there are moments when I meditate regularly and I wonder why I don't do it every day of my life, because it helps me go through tough times. But at the end of the day, we can't be superheroes and superhumans. So just admitting that we can't and that we won't and that it's okay, I think for me is you know, you just let go of that feeling of perfection or that you're trying to reach. You know, we want, and I'm sorry, Michael, I know, but I think you know, for me it's really important to say, hey, you know, I can't. And just one thing that has worked really well for me is the walk and talk. You know, there has been a lot of talking about that. And I think, you know, doing coaching sessions, you know, walking and talking and taking people to walk and to do that as walking while walking, I think is a fabulous, you know, fabulous experience. So, yeah.
So in the interest of time, Michael,
Yes.
do you want to lead the meditation or do you want to answer the question?
I'll say a quick little bit about vulnerability.
We don't have, I'm conscious that we don't have time for both.
Okay.
So we may need to just do the meditation. Sorry, right, Søren? What have we left?
Yes,
Yeah.
we just have enough time for that.
Yeah. I think we need to do that if that's okay. Sorry, Michael.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay. I don't do them all myself, so trust me, it's not about getting everything perfect. It's not about that. But as long as you make an effort, that's all that matters. Just make some kind of an effort, because you're going to, if you feel like you're setting yourself up for to do what everybody wants you to do with health and well-being, you'll only fail. You got to do small steps, and that's the only way anything's going to happen. Because look, we're all vulnerable. We never finish what we start. But look, as long as you're on the road, that's all that matters. Okay. So I'd like to just to lead us into a quick meditation.
Before you do that, Michael, can I just say to people, if you want to, please feel free to turn off your camera, so that you don't need to keep your camera on, and that includes the panelists. You know, we've lovely faces, but feel free to turn them off if you want to. Okay, thank you, Michael.
Okay, guys, I know you've had a little bit of meditation today and a bit of talk about mindfulness. So if we can just sit up on the chair or wherever we are, the kitchen counter, and just in a nice relaxed position, okay, with the body upright, okay, and feel as if the head has been drawn from above, okay. So sit in this nice relaxed position. Try not lean into the chair, and we're going to close our eyes, and we're just going to be aware of our bodies in the chair. Feel that weight of the body on the chair, and feel the weight of your feet on the floor. And feel the clothes on the skin. And the play of air on your face and in your hands. Just try to be here now for a couple of seconds. Dinner will wait. The morning is gone. Just be here. And now what will happen is the mind will start coming up with these ideas of what to do next and what am I going to do tomorrow and when is this guy going to stop. So don't be concerned. Just every time a thought comes in, just come back to the feeling of the clothes on the skin and the weight of the body. And now bring your attention to the sense of taste. We don't have to taste anything, but just the sense of taste. Where does it happen? And now to the sense of smell. Again, not smelling anything, but just be aware of that sense. And now let's turn our attention to our listening, our hearing, something we don't often do in the day. And let's focus on the small sounds in the rooms around us. And again, if the mind begins to wander or bring you off, bring your attention back to the listening. This is one of the easiest senses to connect with. Just hear those sounds. And now let your hearing extend out past your room, out past to the road outside, to the city, wherever you live, maybe countryside, and try and hear the sounds from outside the room. And each sound arises from silence and drops back into silence. So let's see if we can connect with the silence in between those sounds. Stay connected to the listening. And be aware of where you are. Whatever country you're in, whatever city, realize that everything is going on all over the world. We end up in a small circle and we think that our lives, that's it. There's nothing else going on. But just be aware that right now, there are people sleeping right now. There are people just getting up right now. There are people that are eating, working out. The whole world is moving as we sit here. It's very important to remember this. We need to connect outwards, expand outwards. Stay with the listening. Let the mind do what it wants. Thoughts are like buses. We don't have to get on. We're standing at the bus stop, let them pass. And now gently and slowly, just open the eyes. And that's a short little exercise that you can put into your daily routine if you find it helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Sorry, we ran over time, Soren, a little bit, I think.